Alright guys, today we are going to talk about one-point perspective and how to do it. So on your paper, you're going to need a paper, a ruler, and a pencil for what we're going to do. In the top left corner, go ahead and title it 1-point perspective. Now what one-point perspective is it shows how to draw things that look like they go backwards in space. So if you've ever been driving down like a long straight highway before, the road near you looks big and then the road far away from you looks like a teeny tiny skinny point until it vanishes over the horizon. That's what we're going to do today. So to get your horizon, what you're going to do is you are going to take your ruler and then across your paper, go ahead and draw one line that goes all the way from left to right. This line is called your horizon line. If you don't know what a horizon is, it is where your sky meets your ground. So whenever those two touch, that line that it creates, that is your horizon line. In the very, very middle of your horizon line, I want you to put a dot. This dot we are going to label your vanishing point. Your vanishing point is where all of your lines that go back in space, they are all going to go to this point, and that's going to make more sense once we get going, but they all go directly to this one spot in the middle of your paper. Alright, so in the bottom corner down here, just kind of in the bottom left, I want you to draw a square. It doesn't have to be a perfect square, as long as it's, somewhat straight. Now this square is a flat shape. It's two dimensions. But what we're going to do is we're going to turn it into a three-dimensional cube. To do that, the lines that are going to go backwards, they're going to show the sides of the cube. They're going to go to your vanishing point. So with your ruler, I want you to go ahead and line up the top left corner in your point. You're going to draw a line that goes all the way back. Do the same thing with your top right corner. Line them up. Draw a line that goes all the way back to your vanishing point. And your bottom right corner. Line them up and draw them all the way back. Now we have a fourth corner over here that we didn't use. We actually don't have to use that. If you're drawing something that's solid, which means you can't see through it, you don't have to draw this last corner, because if you were to line it up with the vanishing point, it would just go straight through your cube. So instead, we're just going to leave it blank. Now if you were trying to draw maybe like a glass cube, you could draw that last edge, but we're just not going to do it today. So now we have, it looks like a cube that goes on and on and on and on forever until it vanishes into our vanishing point. But we want to cut it off. We want it to look like a short cube. To do that, we have to create the top edge and the side edge right here. Now it's super, super important that you follow this step no matter what whenever you're finishing a square. Your top edge right here that is straight across, you have to draw a line that's parallel right here. If you want to use your ruler, you can. I'm just going to freehand it. This goes straight across, so I'm going to draw a line that goes straight across. Same thing with this edge right here. It goes straight up and down, so I'm going to draw a line that goes straight up and down. Now one mistake people make, I'm going to erase this to show you. One mistake people make is that they don't draw this edge straight up and down. They draw it kind of out to the side like this. See how that makes your square or your cube look wonky? This edge isn't like the others. That's why it's very, very important that you draw your edge up and down. And now, if you were to erase these lines that we don't need anymore, you have a three-dimensional cube that goes back into space to your vanishing point. You'll also notice you can see 1, 2, 3 sides of your cube. That's important. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. Now let's do a different shape over here. Let's do a rectangle. So go ahead, draw it. It's just like how you started your cube. Draw a rectangle that is taller than it is wide. Kind of like so. Just like your cube, you're going to start with these top corners, line them up with your vanishing point, and draw a line that comes straight down. Line it up with your vanishing point, draw it straight down, and finally with this bottom corner. Line it up and draw it. Remember, you don't have to do this fourth corner right here. If you did, it would just go straight through your objects, so you don't have to worry about that. To finish off your box, once again, you can use your ruler if you want to. Sometimes people find it helpful to line up your ruler on the top edge and then just kind of barely scoot it up a little bit so that it's the same direction, and draw your line. If you find that helps you, you could go ahead and do so. If you just like freehanding it, you can do that as well. But your top has to be parallel and your sides have to be parallel. And you can still see 1, 2, 3 sides of your cube. Now I'm not going to erase these lines yet because we're actually going to draw a second cube next to your first one. Right now it can either look like just one cube with some lines, or it could look like one cube with a second one next to it that goes on forever. But we're going to cut this guy off. So just like the first time, we're going to draw a parallel line right here and a parallel line right here. And we've created our second cube. You have 2 cubes sitting next to each other. Now you can technically only see 2 sides of this, and that's because you can't see the back side, and the front side that has a 3 right here, it's covered up by this guy. So I'm going to erase those numbers because we don't quite need them right now, but I just wanted to let you know you can only see 2 sides of your cube if there's 2 next to each other. Let's do this one more time. Let's have 3 boxes that are stacked together. Three boxes. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to turn one of these boxes into a space. Now I want you to watch this part of the video first and then try to draw it on your paper, because you might have to watch it 1 or 2 times to get the idea of it. But this middle box right here, we have 1, 2, 3. This middle one we are going to turn into a space, and it's super easy. All we have to do is make the bottom edge and the side edge. Well, you can see on this front one, this top edge and this bottom edge are parallel to each other, just like all the other tops that we've made right here. So in this second box, the bottom of this one right here, I'm going to draw a line that goes straight across. It's parallel to the top up here. And with this corner right here, I'm going to draw a line that's parallel to the edge right here. Now notice I'm stopping when I hit this front box. We want them to look like they're solid. So once again, you can rewind if you need to listen to that again or watch it again, but you draw a horizontal line right here and a vertical line right here. And now, whenever you erase those vanishing point lines, it looks like you have a space in between box number 1 and box number 2. You can also now see 3 sides of this box again. So if you were drawing a street, so say we were to make this a street right here, I'll redraw this line real quick. This one goes all the way out to the bottom, and this one goes all the way out to the bottom. This could be your road right here with the dots down the middle. This could be a building, and these 2 could be a building, and maybe this is like an alleyway or something in between the 2. Being able to put spaces in between your boxes makes things look very realistic and like you actually have space in your drawing. All right, so we talked about how your cubes, you can see 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Well, I'm going to show you a couple instances where you can only see two sides of the box. So we have a horizon line right here, and you'll notice these squares that we started with were below the horizon line. Well, let's try to draw one that is on the horizon line. We'll say it sits right halfway across it, half above, half below. I'm going to go ahead and erase the line in the middle too. What happens is we're going to try to line up our corners just like we did before. So this top right corner, I'm going to line it up with the vanishing point. Draw my line that goes back to it. We're going to do this bottom right corner too. Line it up with the point in the corner and draw your line. But what happens is if you try to line up this bottom left corner in your vanishing point, you're just going to draw through your cube again. And if you do it with the top left corner, you're just going to draw through your cube again. So just like how we didn't draw a line from this bottom left corner, you don't have to draw a line from these two either. To end your cube, you're actually just going to draw this parallel line right here. And you see two sides of your box. You don't see a top and you don't see a bottom. So 1, 2. If your beginning square that you draw for your box touches or goes across the horizon line, you are only going to see two sides of your box. So even if you were to start with like a square that was below your horizon line, but it still touches right there, that is still considered on the horizon line, and you'll only see two sides. So if we were to draw a square over here, it would do the same exact thing. You would only see 1, 2 sides. One more time where that happens is if you draw a square that's directly above or below your vanishing point. So let's do above. Go ahead, just draw one more quick square. And let's try lining up the corners again. So if we were to draw this one down, we would see it. But if you try to do this one up here, you're just drawing right through your cube. We'll do this bottom right one right here. Line up the corner and the point and draw it down. But if you were to try to do the top right one, you would just draw through your cube. And to finish it, you can just draw one more parallel line to the bottom. Now you have a two-sided cube again. Now all these things can be made if you were wanting to draw like a scene. So here we have a street front and stuff, but say you wanted to do a sidewalk. Well, you have one line right here that goes back to your vanishing point. That's one side of your sidewalk. We can make a second side of your sidewalk. And then you would just draw horizontal lines. They're parallel to the tops and bottoms of your buildings, and you would just go back in space, and it would make your sidewalk. The important thing is, though, the boxes that are closest to you, they are going to be the biggest. As things go back in space, they get smaller and smaller and smaller. You'll notice this building right here is smaller than the one in front of it. The things that are closest to you are biggest, furthest away are smallest. So as your squares of your sidewalk go back in space, you're going to have to put the lines a little bit closer together until they're so close you can barely tell a difference in the distance. Same thing if you were to do the lines on your road. If I were to actually make these realistic, the one closest to you would be really long, and then a little shorter, until they look like little bitty dots in the horizon. say you wanted to draw trees. You know how trees sometimes run down the road? Well, I am actually going to, let me think. Let's use these lines that we had from our first box. I'm just going to darken them a little bit more because I can still see them from where we erased them. Your trees are going to have to fit into these. If, say, they were planted all at the same time and they grew at the same rate, all the trees would pretty much be the same size, right? But as they go back in space, they get smaller and smaller. So your first tree right here, we'll draw like the tree trunk, and then I'll draw the fluffy leaf part. Then your next tree, he'll start on this line right here, but notice how his trunk's a little bit smaller. And the leaf part is a little bit smaller. Things get smaller the further back they go in the distance. If you wanted to do telephone poles, it would be the same thing. So like you would draw, I'm just going to do really quick right here without measuring it. You draw one telephone pole, two telephone poles, they get smaller the further they go back, yada yada yada. The lines, the telephone pole wires, I guess, they would actually start with your first guy right here, and then they would go back to the vanishing point. So if you were actually wanting to draw this, I would draw your first guy first, connect him back to the vanishing point, and then draw the next ones where they're touching the lines here. Lots of things you can do. If you wanted to turn this guy into, say, like a train, you could draw a couple more train cars. Let me get a couple going here. We'll put that space in between the two. And maybe we turn this first guy into like the beginning of the train. We'll draw some wheels here. We'll give this like the little smokestack thing with the smoke that comes out. You probably wouldn't have this big of spaces in between the train, but you get the idea. And then you could draw, ooh, we need to do windows. Let me erase the numbers on this building so I can show you how to do windows. Now the tops and the bottoms of the windows, those are the ones that are going back in space, the top and the bottom. The sides are going to be going straight up and down. So, let me zoom in here a little bit. We're going to line up with your vanishing point right here. I want the top of my window to be kind of right here on my box. And I'm going to draw the bottom of my window. It's still going to be on the vanishing point right here. I'm scooting my ruler down a little bit, and I'm drawing it down like that. Now this is super, super important. The sides still have to be parallel to the sides of your boxes. If I were to connect these two right here, do you see how that's not parallel? That's going to make your windows look weird. I drew this line a little bit too long, and that's okay, but I'm going to go parallel to this right here, and then you'll just erase that little tail that's there at the bottom. Don't try to connect the edges of your lines together, or else you might get weird shapes. You got to make sure that you're always keeping the lines that go straight up and down and straight across. You got to keep those parallel. The diagonal lines, the ones that go back in space, are the ones that always go back to your vanishing point. So we have a window on, I don't know if this is a building or a train boxcar anymore, but you get the idea. We have a window. If you wanted to do a door, it would be the same thing, just a little bit lower. I'm just going to freehand this real quick. The top, you would go back to your vanishing point. The sides would be straight up and down, and then you give like a little door handle and stuff. Okay? Even if you wanted to draw, what could we make into this up here? Say you wanted to just draw something goofy. Like if you wanted to make a surrealist city where things don't make sense. You could make this up here into like a giant Christmas present. I know that sounds stupid, but you get what I mean. It's a giant Christmas present. Or you could try to draw a plane this way. Like have your lines go down to the vanishing point. This would be the top of the plane. with the wings. It's kind of looks a little weird, but you kind of get the, it looks like a flying fish, but you get the idea. If you, anything you want to draw, if you want it to look like it is, it's in perspective and it goes down in space, this is an easy way to do it. You just have to make sure you start with your horizon line and your vanishing point. One last thing, your vanishing point doesn't have to be directly in the center of your page. The same thing works if we would have put our vanishing point all the way over here. All your lines would go towards that point over here. Your street would just be skewed to the side a little bit. You could have your horizon line all the way up at the top of your paper with your vanishing point, and then just most of your drawing would be your ground and less of it would be the sky. All right, if you have any questions with any of this, try to go back and re-watch the section again to see if you can pick up something. But if you can't understand it, then feel free to email me. We can either talk through Google Meet or try to figure it out another way. But when you are done with this, you should take a picture of it with your iPad and turn it in just like you do with your sketch homework. There is an assignment on Schoology called 1 Perspective Part 1. You'll turn it in there, and then that'll give you credit points for your next project. All right, let me know if you have any questions, and have a good day.